Hello and welcome to this fifth video in the series Flawless Botox Mastery 1.0. In the previous video, we have discussed about injecting the glabellar complex with Botox. And in this video also, we'll see the same thing in a little bit detail. And also we'll see how to go about injecting the crow's feet, which is one of the most earliest indication or earliest signs of aging. So let's get started. So injection techniques for Botox, glabellar lines and crow's feet lines. So when we talk about glabellar lines, we have studied in detail. We have already looked into this, that the major muscles that we are addressing in this area are, one is the corrugator supercilii and one is the procerus muscle. So when we talk about the action of the procerus muscle, we know that it lowers the medial aspect of the eyebrow. And it is responsible for the small horizontal line that appears between the two eyebrows, which is represented by the blue dot in the picture, in the image. And when we talk about corrugator muscle, there are two injection points on the corrugator. One is the green dot, which corresponds to the head of the corrugator muscle, and one is the yellow dot, which corresponds to the tail of the corrugator muscles. And these 2 points are responsible, or the corrugator muscle is responsible for the formation of the vertical lines between the two eyebrows. So the depth of the needle is depth with a 33 gauge half-inch needle. For a blue dot, for the procerus point, is half needle inside. For the green dot or the head of the corrugator is full needle inside. And for the yellow dot or the tail of the corrugator, it is upper 1/3 of the needle. And this needle, what we are talking about, is the tuberculin syringe. If you're using an insulin syringe, then which is more commonly used, which I know. When we're using insulin syringe, the blue dot, you go full depth in, the green dot, you go full depth in, and the yellow dot with insulin syringe is just half depth in. So the PPT, what the PPT shows is about the tuberculin syringe, but if you're using an insulin syringe, the depth is slightly varying. So dose per point is 4 units per point. So we have 5 points in the glabellar complex, and at each point we inject 4 units. And this makes a total of 20 units for the glabellar complex. So this is the illustration which shows. So when talking about the injection technique, what is more important is two things are very important. First, you have to pinch the skin with the non-injecting hand. For example, if you're injecting at the procerus, you have to pinch the skin of the base of the nose, of the root of the nose, in between your thumb and the index finger of the non-injecting hand. And pinching helps in many ways. First of all, it helps to stabilize the injection site. Second, it helps to stabilize your injecting hand. And third, it helps to stabilize the speed of your injections. Now, later in the other videos, when we are discussing the complications of Botox, we'll know that two main reasons why complications happen is, number one, diffusion into the wrong area. And second, the speed of the injection. So if we are able to regulate these two things, if we are able to gauge these two things during our injection procedure, we are making ourselves very safe with Botox. So while injecting procerus, pinch the skin at the root of the nose and then inject half depth in. When you are injecting the head of the corrugator, you have to pinch the head of the corrugator between your thumb and index finger of the non-injecting hand, and then inject full depth in with the tuberculin syringe and full depth in with the insulin syringe also. And when you're injecting the tail of the corrugator, that is the third image, at that point you have to pinch the skin, pinch the tail of the corrugator with the non-injecting hand, and then your syringe has to be angled almost parallelly or almost 30 degrees. And it has to go 1/3 inside the, 1/3 depth inside. And it has to be raising a bleb, because the lateral injection, the injection into the tail of the corrugator, is very superficial, because there we are injecting, because the muscle is very superficial over there. So the important thing is to pinch the skin, and all the injection points should be angled upwards and laterally. That is another important thing. So during these injections, your non-injecting hand becomes your second brain. It helps you reach the exact layer. It helps you, control your speed of injection. It helps you stabilize your hands, the injecting as well as the non-injecting. So these things are very important. Again, the same illustration for the procerus, medial corrugator, and lateral corrugator. That's how you do. This is how you do on this side, and on the other side, again, the similar. Now, when we talk about crow's feet lines, which are also called as the lateral canthal lines, it is the orbicularis oculi muscle, orbital part, and the lateral aspect of the orbital part that we are addressing. So the action of orbicularis or oculi muscle, the orbital part is protrusion of the eyebrow and voluntary eyelid closure. And we know that this muscle, the orbicularis oculi muscle, is very superficial. It's just beneath the skin. All other muscles are lying beneath it. So it's a floating muscle, concentric muscle, sphincteric muscle, very superficial. Now, when we inject the crow's feet or the lateral canthal lines with Botox, the depth of the needle is just half of the needle inside. We have 3 points on each side and 4 units to be injected at each point. So that means 12 units each side, which means 24 units in total. So the action of orbicularis muscle, you know all that. Now, this is how we inject. All injections in the orbicularis oculi muscle are 1/3 of the needle inside. So technical injection recommendations are, first of all, the patient's eyes should be closed. Second, this area is highly vascular. There are a lot of small vessels running in this area. And so it becomes very prone to bruising. So it is important to avoid the superficial vessels. And the only way you can avoid is by stretching the skin. So this is the area where you stretch the skin, or you can pinch the skin also. But pinching won't help much. It is the stretching that will help, because when you stretch the skin, the vessels will become more prominent. They will be visible clearly, and you'll be able to avoid them. Also, the third important thing is you have to inject very superficially, intradermally, raising a bleb, just like you inject for a tuberculin test. Then avoid the inadvertent injection into the upper eyelid, and protect the upper eyelid with your finger. Obviously, the non-injecting hand, as I said, is your brain for the procedure, is your second brain for the procedure. So it will help you block the areas where you do not want the Botox to get diffused while you're injecting. And always point your syringe or the needle away from the eyelid and never towards the eyelid. So there is a very concrete reason behind this, because whenever you're injecting, so at the site of the injection, it tends to, it tends to spread and diffuse more in the direction of the needle. So if you're directing it towards the eyelid or towards the eye, the chances are that Botox diffuses into the eyelid eye muscles. So just to avoid those complications, always point the needle away from the orbit. So that's how you inject. That's how you pinch and stretch. Sometimes you stretch, sometimes you pinch, depends on whether you're wanting to avoid this whether you're wanting to avoid the vasculature, or you're wanting to reach the right plane. So the forehead lines we will be taking up in the next video. Thank you for watching. If you have any doubts, please share in the comments below, or please share with me in the messages, and see you in the next video.